Howdy, howdy, and welcome to My Bloody Judy with your final forgets, myself, Zachary Patton Garcia.
And Ian Carlos Crawford.
And we're here today to talk about the 2020, why does it say 2024 movie? Came out in
Probably that's
2025. It just came out this weekend. The Presence by Steven, I always
Soderbergh.
fuck that. Yes, I always fuck that name up. Soderbergh, correct?
Soderbergh, yeah. Yeah.
Soderbergh.
Soderbergh?
Soderbergh.
Now I'm like, I don't know.
It'll never stay.
Don't ask me.
Yes. Presence. It's that new ghost movie, haunted house.
From the point of
Basic
view of the
bare
ghost.
bones. But the twist here is it's from the perspective of the ghost the entire time. And I remember when I saw that trailer, I was like, okay, this is either going to be really good or it's going to be really bad. There's not going to really be an in between. And I think I was a little bit wrong about that, but I was leaning more towards this is probably not going to be so great and I'm gonna get tired of this pretty quickly. But what did you think? Okay, we both saw it last night.
No, I want you to guess.
Hmm. I don't know. This is the one that I don't think I'll know because I could see you very much hating it. And I could. Did you ever watch A Ghost Story? That movie with Rooney Mara? Okay.
I know what it is, though, because I remember wanting to see it, but I just never did.
Well, fuck. I'm gonna go with you didn't like this one.
Incorrect. I loved it.
There you go.
I also felt like you. I was like, I don't know that. Like, I didn't see the trailer.
Hmm.
I don't know if you have this experience as well, but like, oftentimes it's like, well, I've seen a clip of that, but on mute because I didn't turn the sound on my phone. So, like, I definitely had seen a clip of one of the moments when the daughter, like, not like, but like realizes a
Yeah,
ghost is
yeah.
there. Like, I remember on mute watching a clip of her getting close to the screen and like looking. But that was literally all I knew other than like I had read that it was a point of view of a ghost. And I definitely, as the night went on yesterday, I had kind of a busy day. I was like, oh, I don't feel like going. I'm going by myself. I hate going by myself because then I smell like weed and I'm by myself and people look at me. But I like cried twice. Um,
Okay.
I
I
thought
could
like
see it. I should have guessed that the first time.
in the same way that Nosferatu did, this felt like a really well done play. Like it really
Yes.
felt like this is the scene that like the characters are waiting to move until the curtain comes up. Like it felt, and I mean that in a positive way. It felt very like a really good play. Um, and I will say at the beginning, I was like, is this going to be boring? Like I really was a little bit worried when it's like just like looking out the window, seeing them move in. And I was like, are we not going to do anything? And then it did start to pick up. Um, I think you, I think you liked it.
I did like it. I loved it. I would say, but I didn't like
Okay.
extremely love it. Like it's not. I
Okay.
don't think it'll be my favorite of the year. I think it could be in my
Yeah.
top
I think
10, but also
that's the same
possibly
with me.
not. It could
Yeah.
possibly be edged out. But I did love it. I love the movie A Ghost Story. Like it's one of my favorite movies, and so I figured it was going to be something similar to that. Or I didn't really connect the two actually. I kept thinking Skinamarink. I bring that movie up a lot on this fucking podcast. But I kept thinking Skinamarink. I'm like, it could be good or it could be
Right.
super
Yeah.
tedious like Skinamarink. And I'm bringing my husband. If it's like Skinamarink, he's gonna be so fucking mad that I brought him to this. Um, and I was pleasantly surprised that once it started, it felt like a ghost story, which is again one of my favorite movies. I was hooked immediately from the camera movements going through this empty house, right? Okay, so like the whole setup of this movie is a family moves into a new house, and there's a ghost there, there's a presence there, and the entire movie is shot from the point of view of the presence. So the camera acts as the eyes of the ghost, which I thought was just brilliantly done. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I even want to start there. I'll start with like a quick shout out that the opening title is the same font as Poltergeist, and I really appreciated that. Um, but yes, let's start with this camera because I think the camera work did everything with this movie. Because I think the acting was sometimes a little too muted. I think sometimes the story was a little too I don't know. I did fall out of the story sometimes, but the camera is what kept me into the entire thing. It was so well done.
Yeah, I think the movie itself is pretty fucking beautiful. And it's because of the camera work and the
Mhm.
way, because like I don't know, it felt like you were a ghost. It felt like you were
Yes.
sweeping into the room and sweeping out of the room. Like it felt like this is a ghost and not a person. Like it didn't feel like a person like walking or wandering around. It felt like we are breezing in, breezing out, like kind of like ethereal floating.
Yes.
And I thought that was like really fucking impressive and really beautiful and sometimes really touching with the way it would linger on
Yes.
certain things.
Listen, the camera movements for this. Okay, so when you watch a movie, you're relying on an actor's facial expressions. You're relying on like the way they move, where they're walking in the room, like their line delivery, all of that to sort of get for them to convey whatever emotion you're supposed to be feeling, right? I've never, and if I have, I just can't think of it off the top of my head, but I've never seen a camera
Yeah.
in that perspective do it and we not see an actor, right? This
Yeah.
camera would move
I
with
agree.
haste when it was feeling a little more anxiety, when the ghost was feeling a little bit more anxiety, or if the ghost was feeling more somber, it would like be a lot more stationary. There's one moment where, and I don't remember which scene it was, but she's laying on the bed and the ghost is, you can, in the perspective, and I hope everybody can visualize this, but the camera is moving in a way where it's like right to left, almost like you can envision the steps that it's taking closer and how your body sways when it takes steps closer. And so the camera is like kind of swaying as it's getting closer and coming closer to Chloe, or teenage uh protagonist. Is she?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chloe. And it just did things like that so well. And it did make you like, I've never had a camera movement make me feel
Yeah.
such strong emotions, And we didn't see a fucking character. We didn't even see a fucking character. Mm.
Yep. Yeah, it did a lot of really good work. Like, I think of like when she's hooking up with the guy and the ghost, it was
Yes.
really telling when the ghost, like, wasn't being like invasive. The ghost was like,
Looked
oh, I need to go,
away, looked
like, yeah, I
into
need
a
to go in the
jacket.
closet and look
And it
away.
also
Yeah.
felt very like it would give me chills and it would make me feel sad for it whenever it would
Yes.
do things like that. Like I felt very sad for it this entire time. I think because like just from the beginning, I felt incredibly sad for this ghost because it really does put you in its shoes, its invisible
But like,
shoes. Um, and I just like my heart broke every time it would walk back to the closet and like sit itself in the closet and stay there for however long. And so, like
yeah,
in a ghost story, we see something similar, except it's not from the point of view of the ghost. It's a point of view of the ghost, but you're seeing the ghost, right?
you
The
see the
camera's
ghost in that.
always
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
ghost. It's very
It's
stationary.
like
You
a white
just
sheet,
there's
right?
a
In that.
lot of long shots of either the ghost just standing there and things are moving around it, or the ghost just walking like across the field, and it's just long stuff like that. And this did it, and I always thought that was like really great, and I loved that, but I think this just trumped that, and it cannot be understated. Fucking Oscars, man. The Substance has just been nominated for Oscars, so like that's opening the door for horror a little bit. And this is like supernatural thriller, so the fucking better get awards for the cinematography in this camera
Oh
work,
yeah.
man.
No, I agree.
Absolutely.
I worry something like this will get overlooked because of when it's released, because like movies released like now tend to be like
And it is
forgotten.
smaller, and it doesn't feel like
Yeah.
it's gonna do
I mean, he's a huge
too
director
ter-
though. He's
he
like,
is, mm, but it doesn't. This one doesn't feel like it has that big boom. I mean, it's
yeah,
also the
yeah.
first weekend it came out,
Right,
so
right.
I thought that was
And
the
it's a
substance too.
smaller,
I was like, the substance ain't gonna do nothing. It's just a
true.
little movie that I'm gonna
And
love.
it's like smaller,
Yeah,
but no, yeah, and like I could cry talking about it because it's like it almost felt like the ghost was like a curious child or like a puppy.
yes. Oh my
Um,
gosh, I'm have chills right now.
yeah. No, I mean like I feel like I could cry. Like I just I feel like you can relate to those feelings even if you don't relate, but like you can like understand them. And I
Yeah.
even like for me, I this is like a stretch, but it felt like this is the embodiment of my depression where it's like I'm just watching things happen and like
Mm,
I feel like I can't do anything about it. And so like that's often how I feel when I'm really depressed. And I
yeah.
kept relating that to the ghost and then getting more emotional than like I probably should have been. But they did that feeling so well of like, he's just like a curious, like wants to see what's going on. He kind of wants to participate, but can't. Um,
Yeah.
he doesn't know
See,
who he is. Like,
That's really interesting that that's sort of like where you put yourself in is the is sort of like a metaphor for depression because I could totally see that and for myself I took it as or I related to it in the way that I'm like extremely sensitive to death. It's like one of my biggest fears. It's not me dying, but somebody I love dying, right? Um and like God forbid, knock on all the wood, I don't even want to say it. If my husband died in this house, I could not leave. I had to convince the army to like let me live in this house forever because I'm so sensitive to I don't want to leave this behind. I don't want to leave this person behind. I don't want, what if like because that's why I love the movie A Ghost Story so much again is it's about this ghost going through time and all of these years and these families move out of this house like his wife is in there and she stays there for as long as she can and then she moves out and he never sees her again because he's trapped in this house. He's like stuck here and this is his like place and that's what I felt about this movie. I was like, oh well, it just that's the emotion I felt it brought out was that it just like you said it wants to participate, it wants to, it can't do anything, it's just there and it has to be there. It can't even go outside with people onto the porch, not even the porch. It's stuck
Right.
at windows, it's watching, like it's just it is so sad, it is so sad. Such a terribly sad movie, and fucking Lucy Liu's in it, which I want to talk about also, so that we don't start crying. Let's save the cry for the end. She had a
Can you
lot
see
like
my eyes?
she had a very good performance in this. I thought it
She
was
did,
it was
yeah.
it was very muted until or not super muted. Like she did good with what she had and what she was supposed to do. And it wasn't until the end that I was like, oh, she fucking like ripped me apart. And she lets out because she's pretty monotone, pretty quiet. She doesn't really yell, doesn't really like raise her voice a whole lot.
She's like very strict mom. Yeah.
Yes. And then at the end, we get this huge like show of emotion and scream and collapse to the floor, which is also cliche, but I love a cliche and it works so well when it's the character that you just don't expect to do that. And the scream that she let out, I love a scream that is from somebody who can't scream, and so it
Yes.
sounds
Yes.
guttural and torn apart and unhealthy, and that's what
Yeah.
Lucy
Yeah.
Liu's scream sounded like. And I fucking just oh, I loved her in this.
Yeah, no, and I think people forget, right, that not to be grim, but like when my dad cried over my mom, I was like, this sounds fake.
I
Like it
remember you
sounded,
texting me about that.
yeah, like it sounded fake. And it's because my dad isn't someone who cries. So it just
Mhm.
like if that were in a movie, someone would be like, that actor was really bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, I also agree with you that like her scream feels like it's weird, but it like makes sense for someone who doesn't
Yes.
like
It's
her
super
character isn't
uncomfortable.
yeah, her character isn't a character that emoted often other than being annoyed. And like so for her character to have a weird scream made sense. Um and I think that she did a good job of like doing this weird scream, but then following it up with really like emotions,
Oh,
right?
falling
Like
apart, totally falling apart, like the trembling, the reaching for the glass. Because I guess sort of to tie that in, did you guess what was happening?
mhm.
Okay, when did you guess? When did you like figure it out?
When so I cried through the most of when the Hispanic woman was there
Mm.
like reading them. Um that's when I was like, it's one of the family members. And then slowly I was like, I think it's gonna be the brother. Like
Yeah.
I was like, the movie's leading us to maybe think it might be the sister. I don't think it's her. My two guesses were the mother or the son.
Hmm.
And then slowly, once the parents left, I was like, okay, it's not the mother because they're going to be gone and the movie's ending. So then I was like, it's got to be the brother because it can't be the fucking rapist. And I like
Imagine
kept
it was.
thinking, I know, I was like, I'm going to be really annoyed if it's him. But like by process of elimination, I was like, I think it's got to be the brother. But even so, with being like, I think the ghost is the brother, I still like cried and I still
Yeah.
like, it still like hit me, you know?
Because it was the brother. So the big twist is that it was the brother. And it's not even sort of a twist. I don't think it's presented as a
Yeah.
twist. I think it's presented
No.
as an unfolding. And
Yeah.
you can pretty much because I figured it out about the same time you did, is when the psychic woman is there and she's telling them it's when she said that did they ever call them ghosts? Did they say
I don't
presence
think
the whole time?
I think,
They
I
said
think,
a
yeah.
presence can exist in multiple time periods.
Yeah.
present, past, future. And I was like, okay, so it is probably the sister. And then I kept going back and forth with every scene after that, going between which one I thought it was, because I was like, well, it could be the sister because maybe she ended on bad terms with her brother, and that's why she goes and destroys this room. And when she's watching herself have sex with this guy, because I was very certain that that guy was going to be the cause of everything that happened, right? When she's watching herself have sex with this guy she can't watch, so she looks away. But then I'd be like, no, but a brother wouldn't want to watch his sister having sex, so he would look away, and he could be mad at himself for being so mean to the sister, which is why the dad keeps pointing it out. And so he goes and destroys his own room, and so I did figure it out, and I think that made it even sadder for me. Uh, and so at the end, when Lucy, they at the end, the brother has died. The house is because we keep cutting to black. We'll cut to black for like 4 seconds, and then time has passed. And so by the end, the last scene, we've cut to black, and then we're in the ghost's point of view again, and the house is empty. Everybody's moving out. Lucy Lou stays behind. She goes to the mirror that they keep pointing out as like this really old mirror that has seen a lot of things, and I knew something was going to come up with that fucking mirror. And she sees her son, which was her favorite child, sees her son in there, and that's when she just shrieks. And it's the moment where she starts like pawing at the mirror to try to like get to him, that I was like, oh my God, I cannot deal with this. Cannot handle this. Maybe this is my time to leave. And she just like stole the whole fucking movie for me at that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I was really glad they did. I was worried it was going to be like, oh, now she hates her daughter because her daughter is like
Mhm.
a catalyst for what happened. But I was glad we didn't get that because I just like didn't need that.
I don't think we needed to see it, but it could still be a possibility. And I like the question being open.
Right. But I you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't need like her like pushing her daughter away or being like, don't
Mhm.
touch me, don't talk to me. Um, because yeah, even though that could be like that's not unrealistic. I just didn't. I felt like the movie, these characters didn't deserve more anger. These
Yeah.
characters didn't deserve more, whatever that could have been. So I was glad we didn't get that. But yeah, I just like. So you mentioned you're sensitive to death, and
Yes.
you know, I am too. And like, I always feel like grief is like part of my unfortunately brand. And so I just like I feel like I was really emotional watching this just because like, I've had a lot of people I love die in the last
Hmm.
like 10 years. And I like I could out something thinking about them and it's like
Yes.
there was so I don't cry. There was a moment when I was like, oh God, they could see me jerk off. How embarrassing.
When you get into the technical like that, yes. Maybe don't. I will say, and I don't know if this is because I've thought this to myself. I'm like, well, this is probably inconsiderate and it's probably rude to say, but I do think I think your mom is in your house still, or at least when I was there, I think she was there. I didn't feel your grandma. She could still be there too, but I didn't really like. I mean, I've heard about your grandma, what you've told me, but I've heard more about your mom, and I did feel your mom in there. And I feel like I have a little bit of like sensitivity when they were talking about the doors being open and stuff like that. I think mine is like a peek open, and I can sense things pretty well. And I do think your mom is there, at your house. So I hope she's giving you privacy. You know, um, I don't know. I was thinking of your house while I was watching this.
um Yeah, and like, there's like the story with my grandma, my nephew going
Yeah.
in that room and like shit like that. And there was a second when I was like, oh, I don't like that it fades out. And then I did like that it faded out. I liked that it was like
At
the
the
ghost
end?
kind of no, like the scenes, how it was like always
Oh,
just
okay.
like, well, I went to black and then it could be an hour later, it could be
Yeah.
2 days later. At first I didn't like that, but then it like was consistent with the ghost because she even says he doesn't know like the presence doesn't know why it's here, but it has to do something.
Yeah.
Um, and she says, what else? She says something else about the ghost where like it doesn't know. And so I liked the idea that like it doesn't even have control, or at least I assume it didn't have control of when it fades in and out. It would kind of just like when the sister's hooking up with the guy and it goes
Yeah.
in the closet and looks at the coat, it
Because that would
doesn't
be the
fade
time. That
outright.
would be the time to fade out. I was thinking the same thing. Yes,
Yeah,
and but it
like
doesn't because it's not. it
in
is there.
control.
It's there for specific moments, almost like it's making a movie. It needs it needs things to push the movie forward, right? All of the relevant scenes, and so it comes in and out for those relevant scenes. Um, and I mean, yeah, it just I don't know. And I thought I love the dynamics of the family in it. I love that the sister had lost two of her friends, which is revealed later that they were murdered, and this guy's trying to murder her too. He was fucking weird too, by the way. Who carries like cling wrap in a tube within a tube?
I don't know how I feel about his character because I almost feel like we didn't need it, but we did to get to the end. But
Mm.
I don't know. I feel like it could have just been a friend of hers died. She meets a guy who is like a rapist. Like I feel like
Mm.
we didn't need it that he's like a serial killer. That's like a teenager. I didn't quite need that, but it didn't bother me per se. I just like
I could
I
deal with
felt
it
it
because
felt
yeah,
a little bit big for this movie that was quieter.
everything around it was good enough that we didn't need all of that. And
Yeah.
so when he comes in and he starts doing his big monologue and stuff, I don't think I followed a word he said. Like I didn't really like it was a lot. It felt like a lot. Also,
Yeah.
though, I was put on edge when so the psychic comes back at one point and the ghost is watching from the window and the psychic tells the dad that I've had a dream, there's something about like a window that doesn't open and stuff like that. I was like super on edge at that point. I was like, shit is about to go down, somebody's gonna break in, they're not gonna be able to get out or something like that. I was slightly um let down by the big finale. But again, like what you're saying, it is a quieter movie, so it was a very quick, snappy like thing. And
Yeah.
sometimes in
Yeah.
life, things just happen super snappy. And the
Yeah.
brother just ran up, and but I was hoping for a little bit more horror, I guess, but also not mad at it.
No,
Yeah,
I could agree with that. I think I was waiting for a little. I kept waiting. Like when the ghost does, there's a few things that the ghost does where I was like, "Ooh, that is a little creepy." Like I would because as you have mentioned, I live in a suburban house, so it's like I kept thinking of like I've texted you many times. Like I get spooked by myself in this house, just as I get spooked alone easier and in the dark. And like how absolutely terrified I would have been if like the smallest little things, like when she comes out of the bathroom and all of her shit that was on her bed is now in a
yeah,
pile on her desk. Like that is so little. And right in a movie, that's
but
not like,
terrible, terrifying.
yes, right? Like in a movie, that's not a big thing, but like in real life, that is a big, like that would scare you too, probably, right?
Yes,
Like, and I kept relating to that. So I was like, ooh, are we gonna get like a, and we didn't, and that's okay.
but
But yeah,
I fully like believe in things like this. I believe in like presences and
yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna call fucking ghost. I can't do that. I fully believe in ghosts and all that, and I believe that when you're walking down a hallway or you're in a room or something, and you do feel like something is watching you, something is watching you. It doesn't always mean it's like a sinister or something insanely dark, but something is there. And then other times you might be in that same spot and not feel it, and it's because it's not there. And that could be like I think this movie like said it really well. It was like they fade in, they fade out. They're there, they're not. They're
yeah,
there,
yeah.
they're not. Sometimes they're in a place for just once, right? But because we have a room here who we have a room here at our last house. I felt it all the time, like in the same exact spots all the time. But here in our bedroom, I only felt it like once or twice. Like the sense of somebody watching me from the closet. It was after we took the closet doors off, and I haven't. I just don't feel it like on the regular. I just don't feel it anymore, and I feel like that is that sort of thing, the fade in, fade out. In contrast to the last house where it was all the time. So I loved the lore that this movie built with things like that.
I I loved everything about the psychic because I was like, "Ooh, are we gonna
Yes.
go like big?" And I loved that it wasn't. I love that like you could see that she was genuine and she was real, but you could see how someone from the outside would be like, "Man, this is bullshit." Like
Yeah.
because it wasn't big, right? It was just she would like sit down and like rub her temple and then get back up and be like, "It doesn't know what it's here for," blah blah blah, and like it was kind of vague, but we knew she was looking directly at the fucking ghost because she's
Yeah.
looking at the camera. So we, as the viewers, knew that she was not bullshitting us at all. And I really liked that because that's where I kind of sit with that stuff where I'm like, I don't think there's a clear-cut answer often
Mm.
because I understand what you mean. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, but I'm so anxious that like sometimes I'm like, was there something?
I
Or
do
am
think
I
you
just
can
like,
create it in your head too. It doesn't always mean
yeah.
it's something.
And so that's like where I am with that stuff, where I'm like, it could be, but I am always interested in stuff that like, someone online would be like, oh, that's so obviously fake. And like you
Mm.
don't know. You just don't know. And I really liked that even though they all saw the fucking go, they saw it destroy the room. So like at that point, but I was thinking like my dad would be the mom and the son who are like, no, this is bullshit. Like even with seeing like things fly around a room and like
Hmm.
drawers opening on their own, my dad would 100% be the person that's like, oh, there was like an earthquake, even though wasn't one. Like he absolutely would like find a way to reason it. And I'm always somewhere in the middle where like there isn't really a reason. So like
Yeah.
if there isn't a reason, that's when I can be like, it could be. Like I don't even know that I 100% believe in it, but it could be.
Yeah.
Um,
You
so
just don't
yeah,
know.
that's
Like I feel like ghosts come in as residual energy, and residual energy is just passing from place to place, or like remaining in a place, or like, but eventually residual energy is just going to dissipate because there's only a finite amount of that. That's sort of like how ghosts exist in my brain.
mm,
Um, and less so like this, where it's like they come back for a purpose to do a thing, and um but I did appreciate this. I appreciate it. See, when the whole brothers room got trashed, I didn't take it as they didn't believe it. I took it as like they believed it, but they were like, okay, well let's, because he was like, the brother was like, I'm not going back in the house, and the mom was like, yeah, let's just go. So they believed it, but they
but with the
they didn't
psychic,
want to
they didn't
confront
believe her.
anything that
They
I
didn't
know.
believe the
Yeah, well, it's
psychic.
because she got paid, right? And so like they were like, oh well, she's fake. She
Well, that's what I mean. That's my dad would absolutely been like, no, that's fake. She just
yeah.
looked for money. Everyone just wants free
I think
money.
that's more fair. That's more, because you don't know, you don't fucking know. She could absolutely be making shit up. And I like that they put a little bit of doubt on there because he was like, oh, I told her your middle name. She
Yeah,
asked for
yeah,
our full
yeah.
names, and so she could have looked up anything. When they said it was Cece, Julia Fox, I think should have been in this more. I was very excited to see Julia Fox in this movie, and she really is only in the beginning as the real estate agent.
I couldn't believe we didn't see her again.
Because didn't they said Cece's sister-in-law or something like that,
So
and
I
so
thought she
that
was coming.
I
Yes.
thought that she was coming, but then I was like, oh, well, maybe Cece is the guy. Maybe that's just his name or whatever. And I just looked it up, and her name is Cece in the damn movie. So where the fuck was Julia Fox? Steven
Right.
Soderbergh?
Because it's so weird to even make it be her sister. Like that for
Yeah.
me, that implied that she was the one bringing her to the house.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I because I feel like Julia Fox's name is a name I see a lot, like
Her
Julia
in the
Fox
movie
and Lucy
more.
Liu.
We wanted Julia
Yeah,
Fox and Lucy Liu.
and like arguably that psychic woman was in the movie more than Julia Fox was.
Yeah. Julia Fox. And I figured Julia Fox wasn't going to be in it very much because she wasn't really in the trailers or anything, but she was, being promoted so much. But I didn't think like we were just not going to see her again because they mentioned her, but they
Right.
didn't. And also, okay, yeah, bouncing off to another note, what was the crime that the mom was committing? Was it like paying off schools or something like that?
Oh, I thought it was just like generic fraud. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Because there's
Because
like
I
a
felt like because the way they were talking about money, I was like, oh, she's like, for me, that's
okay.
just like fraud. I don't know. Like,
Yeah, there's like a subplot where I guess the mom has committed a crime and the dad's calling lawyers. It's like, hey, if I separate from this woman, am I still liable for these crimes? Am I gonna be an accomplice? Um, yeah, I don't know. I thought that was
I
interesting.
also, there was like a moment where I thought the brother was supposed to be gay. Like when he brought that kid home, I was like,
Oh, see,
oh,
I never
that's,
even read into that then.
I fully was like, does the rapist boyfriend
Hmm.
for me came off a little gay. Like when he was doing his like sick bro, no, no, blah blah blah. I was like, he's doing too much. This guy's like hiding because he's gay, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I thought it would. But it was just like he was like a douchebag. But I was like, oh, we're gonna get a gay subplot. I'm gonna like the brother more, but then that wasn't.
I did. I don't know. Mm, I don't think I ever came around to see. There's two versions of the brother for me. Is like I think of them almost like two separate characters because I didn't really care about the brother, but then I care so deeply about the ghost, which is the brother. So I don't know. And I also didn't care about Chloe all that much. Which I don't know.
Oh no,
I don't know what that is. Yeah. Did you? Like
as the depressed person over dead people, I like very much appreciated the dad being so on her
I
side.
loved him.
Um,
Yeah.
he was such a good dad, and I really appreciated that before he knew what it was, he was still on her side. And then when he knew what it was, he kind of navigated it and was like, I don't know, but let's call the psychic because we saw what happened. And then he's like, no, I believe you. Like he sits
Yeah.
her down to tell her he believes her. And I just like, there are very few people, and you are one of them to your credit, that like can be comfortable sitting down with like a depressed, grieving person
Mhm.
and like it doesn't make them fully freak out or make them like have word vomit or make them whatever. And like that is so important to have someone who can do that. So I made me love the dad because he was such a good
Yeah.
dad. Um, and I liked that when he yelled at the brother, it wasn't like he resented the brother. It was just like, you're being
Yeah,
terrible. And
yeah,
he
yeah.
was like, he was still being a good dad. Like he didn't like delve into like revenge for
Well,
the
it didn't
daughter.
feel
It
like
just,
he was playing favorites like Lucy
right.
Liu's character was playing favorites.
Yes.
Lucy Liu's character clearly had a distinct favorite, and it didn't feel like he did it. It felt like he was trying to create some sort of unity and be
Balance. Yeah.
sensitive to Chloe's struggles. And I don't know what it was, I guess, that I didn't really connect to Chloe because I did on like a service level, like logically you can understand she's going through something and stuff like that, but I don't feel like we saw enough of that manifested. Like there was one moment that was brilliant where she's like basically picking her nail bloody, and I thought that was great, but it's so small in everything else that I wanted to see more of stuff like that. I did want to see a little bit, and I understand subtlety sometimes is better, but I did with her want to see more of the breakdown that they kept all talking about, and that they're that's why the brother hated her so much is because she kind of, I guess she kind of became the focus for a little while because she was really going through it. I needed to see a little bit more of that. I felt like I was missing too much of that.
That's fair.
And, somebody having sex to feel something or like that always doesn't, land for me.
The thing that didn't land for me with that was that I thought I had a pretty good grasp on her, but then
Yeah.
she was a little bit too, like, when she was alone with the guy and she was trying to, like, fuck, it felt like, who is this person? Like, this person seems confident. This person seems, and so that was a little, like, to me, like, a little bit like,
Yeah.
I
It's
don't know.
it's
That's the
if
only part for me that
it's
didn't quite land.
self-destructive. And again, logically I know it's self-destructive, but I haven't
Right.
seen self-destructive built up
Yeah.
to buy this here because I thought the same thing as you. I was like, well, initially she's characterized as the more quieter one, the one who's like quietly suffering.
The
Um,
parents had just said in like a scene before that she doesn't talk. And then suddenly she's
yeah,
like,
and then
hey,
she's
what are you
like,
doing? Want to go to
and
my room?
I understand that
Right.
self-destruction is real and like but like I don't know. It just again, it didn't land for me. I think they should have built out a little bit more of like the freak outs because sometimes people just freak out, out of nowhere. And I think that could have even, we hear a little bit about her and stuff like that. And maybe just one night goes blips in and we don't even get a whole lot of explanation on the context of the buildup, but she's having a full freak out where they're trying to calm her down or something. I needed one something like that because then it just came off too plain, I guess.
Mm, that's
But
fair. I
yeah,
mean, I think I also projected a lot, so that's
sure.
fair.
Um, Yeah, I don't know. I loved the whole movie all the way around. Loved the
Also,
house. Was obsessed with the house, and
oh yeah,
and that we. I love when a movie will let us know the layout of the house. Shout out to Scream. We all know what Casey Becker's house is like. I love
they
when a
did give us
movie
a very
does
clear
that.
layout. Yeah.
Yes, I could draw that by memory.
I also wanted to point out when the mother is sitting with the son for that one scene where they're alone in the kitchen and she's clearly drunk.
Yeah.
I was like, is she going to try to fuck her son? Like, I
No, I
really
didn't get
like
that. No.
because she kept stressing, well, I love you so much more. And I was like,
Mhm.
why is she stressing that she loves him more than his sister? That everything's only for him and not his sister.
Yeah.
And like she's like rubbing his arm and then like holds his hand. And I was like, is,
I think that maybe was more. I see that so often though of women, and it's more so like I think gay men and a mother have a different relationship than a straight man and a mother does. In terms of attachment. We're attached in different ways, but I have seen a lot of straight men and their attachment to their mothers in a way like that, where she
Mm,
just absolutely like that's Alistair's mother, like
mm,
up until like recently. But she like doted over him. He has three sisters. She didn't talk about the sisters. She didn't give the sisters no attention. Alistair was like the center of
mm.
her palm world, everything. And it is like a very strange dynamic to watch from the outside. So that's kind of where I got it from. Speaking of the
That's fair.
drinking, I thought that drinking was awesomely put, for Lucy Liu. Every time we saw her, she had a drink in her hand, a drink in a laptop, a drink in a MacBook,
Yeah, she also had her laptop
always
everywhere.
deleting emails.
I also liked how obvious it was she was lying, and she was like, "Just like some virus, I don't know, some
I feel
virus."
like there was just so much there with her that we just feel like I feel like they filled her character in so well, just with
No,
everything
I
she would
agree.
do. And again, that's what I kind of wished we were singing with Chloe.
And there's something else that I feel like I say this a lot too. I love a full circle, and this
Yes,
movie did full circle really, really well. Um, I just because I didn't understand so the psychic when she comes back is like the window that won't open because the ghost can't get through any of the windows, so
yeah.
none of the windows can open. And I
I
didn't
was
make
like,
that
oh, but that was
connection.
closed.
Zach, I was like, is it just like what's closed? Like, what window have we seen open?
Yeah.
Um, but it was just because the ghost can't get out of the any of the windows, and like so they couldn't open. I just like I love when shit like that can come together, and I thought this movie did that really well. And I think we don't. The psychic says the ghost needs the presence needs to do something. They don't know what. I really like the idea of the ghost having like an inkling of something's going to happen. I don't really know what, but I know that that's why I'm here. Something is going, and like
Yeah.
I don't know, man. There's something like beautiful about the ghost being the guy, and he helps himself save his sister, which turns him into the ghost. And like for me, there's something like really like
It was
beautiful
it,
in
it
that full
was super
circle.
poetic, and the fact that whenever the ghost does respawn, it's always around that closet. Like that closet is base for the ghost,
Yeah.
and it's the closet in the sister's room. Because why not his room? Why not somewhere else in the house? It's in the sister's room, which is always open, which is at a bit of a distance, but still there, and that is his
Yeah.
natural pulling point. Um,
Yes.
After he watches things in the house, he'll walk upstairs and he'll go and stand in the closet, and there is something
Mm.
really beautiful about that. And then at the end, when she is like she's about to be murdered, um, the okay, because I guess the ghost powers is something we should talk about, I guess, because the ghost can like move things. I thought it was like I giggled a little bit. It's a little hokey, but like also I really liked it when it's like lifting books and
Mhm.
and it's got like I'm like looking for the wires as it's like lifting stuff in the air. I'm like it's little ghost hands are out there. Uh, but it has this like vibrating thing or whatever to like get people's attention or pull their frequency or something, whatever it's like doing, right? It's
I love
alerting.
that.
Loved all the vibrating things, and then the things would happen. And so at the end, when she's about to be murdered, the ghost is like vibrating on the guy, vibrating on her. It's like vibrating all over the place, not really making a change. Goes downstairs, vibrates on himself, and he's not waking up. And so he uses her screams, right? Because that was her screams in his
I think
ear,
so.
and because Alistair, my husband, was like, when we got out, he was like, well, I don't really understand how he knew something was going on with his sister when he woke up. And I was like, well, because he heard the sisters, like, even if it wasn't her screaming, he heard her screams. And so
Yeah.
immediately coming out of a thing, I would like run thinking something happened or whatever. I sometimes whenever I'm like a little sleep deprived, I'll hear like doorbells and I'll jump up out of my sleep and I'll go into the front door and like run over
Yeah.
there.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
never a fucking doorbell. And so it's like that sort of like same effect. Is he heard his
Yeah. No,
sister
I agree with that.
screams, immediately runs up there, doesn't even know what he's gonna find, finds him up, and there's just no time for processing anything in that.
Yes,
Um,
that's what I did like because for me that made it make more sense. Like this guy is still kind of drugged too, right? Like it's
yeah,
like he's like there's fumes there that are powering him, and like so that's why also it made more sense that they do fall out the window because he's just like
yeah,
pushing himself towards this guy, but he wouldn't have been able to fight him because he was still drugged. So it's like, just push all your weight onto this like person to stop them from killing your sister. And that's why they fucking fall out the window. And
Yeah.
I really loved that. I thought they did a good job where it made sense. Those steps, I thought,
Yeah.
like,
Well, and then the ghost, it's really interesting because you would expect more of a follow-up to those moments or seeing more of like, the parents. I was real worried we were gonna get like a Tony Collette coming home, seeing him on the driveway dead and like Lucy Lowe screaming. And I think that she would have done brilliant in that, but I think it was more impactful that because the ghost is going in and out without control, that the moment happens, the ghost is out. And then the
yeah,
ghost comes back for his mother. And
yeah.
that's his like final moment, right? And then again,
I'm
it's a
gonna
little cheesy.
cry.
I know, and then it's a little cheesy, and I did giggle a little bit, but I also loved it again. It's like he like floats out of the front door, and he's like, "I am free. You've broken the curse." And that's the only time we ever see the outside of the house too. So I'm glad they gave that to us because I was curious what it looked like.
Yeah, no, yeah, I feel like I keep getting red because I'm trying not to cry.
I know I'm trying not to make you cry.
Um, yeah, no, there's like it did grief so well, and it showed how the
Yeah,
daughter reacted to grief. It showed how the mother reacted to grief. It showed that the daughter kind of was like, I have to pick it up now because mom is so depressed.
yeah,
And I did like seeing the daughter have to be like, okay, hey mom, yeah, wait as long as you need to. We'll be outside. Like I really liked that because I was worried they were gonna make the mom hate the daughter, and like you, because she's still drugged, right? So like who knows how long it took her to be able to even like call 911?
because they weren't coming home that night. Nobody was coming by. Nobody was gonna find him, you know. We don't know how, yeah, exactly. We don't know how long it took her to like get
Like,
up and realize anything. Because you could also get up in a drug state, not even realize the window off to your side is even broken, and
right.
you're kind of just walking through the house. Assume your brother's like gone out with his friend or something. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, no, and I really kept thinking about that because I was like, fuck, how long did it take her to be able to move her like limbs and be able to speak that she could be like, hey, my brother fell out of the window.
Yeah,
Um, and so I actually was worried that we were gonna get like, oh, the next day the parents come home, see him dead, and then she yells at the like
yeah,
daughter for not helping or not knowing that the daughter was like drugged or whatever. And I was like, really? Because I didn't want that.
yeah.
But as you said, it makes sense that the ghost kind of was like, oh, that's what I needed to do. All right. And then
It's
like,
not. It's not there to. It doesn't. It's not there watching what's not necessary. I think.
right.
And like in my brain, in my sort of like head canon, I think the mom does probably hate her. I think she probably does have a lot of hostile feelings, but like you said, we didn't need to see that. It could be filled in by the audience,
Yeah.
and however
Yeah.
they need to fill it in. Um, I don't know. Brilliant movie all the way around. I did really like it. I was like super pleasantly surprised because again, I was expecting very, very slow, like Skin Break. I was expecting a lot of that, and
There
I
was
don't know.
almost like a part of me almost said no when you were like, should we do that movie? Can you see it tomorrow? And I was like, oh, do I feel like going to movies about myself tomorrow? But I'm glad I did not say no.
Still better than that gay movie about the ghosts, whatever that was. Me and Ian's birthday one time, we went to the movies and saw a gay movie about ghosts, and the most uncomfortable hour and a half of almost the most uncomfortable of my life.
All of us strangers. Poor
Did not
Zachary.
expect how depressing that was gonna be.
My first birthday without my mom,
We're
and
like,
we went to see a movie about a depressed gay 40-year-old writer who has a
ooh,
dead mom.
shout out Paul Mescal. I don't know. Yeah, this had a budget about $2 million too. It looked like it, shot well.
Yeah, it's so well
Like
shot.
and it did feel like a play because I think about that all the time. Is like movies that feel like plays and shows that feel like plays and like conversations with dead people. I always think of like a stage
Yeah.
play, and this definitely felt like that. But I don't know. Do you have any sort of final thoughts? I guess.
No, I don't think
Uh,
so. Go see this movie. I hope this movie does. I like want this movie to do well because I feel like it deserves to do
yeah.
well. And I'm hoping like a word of mouth thing because I saw it last night at like 9:30 and I text Zach because I was like, I'm stoned and the theater's dark and there's no one in here. I'm gonna be so scared. The movie isn't that scary at all.
Yeah.
But like, luckily, a couple walked in and sat like 2 rows in front of me, and I was like, oh, good.
When we booked our tickets, there was nobody in there, but when we got there, there was a lot of people, and some fucking, and I know because we booked our tickets first, we were the very first people to book our tickets, that there was some man who sat right next to us, like had booked his seat right next to us in an empty row, by the way. So Alistair did not sit next to him. He moved to my other side. Um, and that dude was like talking through the movie too. It was terrible.
Oh, that's so annoying.
He was like
I
commenting on everything, like out loud. I was like, "Sir, you're not here with anybody. He's with his own ghost."
Right, yeah. I feel like I do feel like those people kind of do just talk out loud to themselves.
And
Like they're
that's
gonna
fine.
talk in a
I talk to
movie.
myself in my house, but not at the movie theater.
Right, right,
Okay,
right,
it's time
right.
for silence. Silence is golden.
It's a quiet
You wouldn't do
reflection
that around
time.
Nicole Kidman. Don't do that around me. Um,
Treat me like you treat Nicole Kidman.
I do hope it does pick up though, because I'm trying to think of like what would be the word of mouth, because we know things like The Substance has like, oh, this is the gnarliest movie you'll ever see, and
Right,
like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
and there's so much to talk about. But there's really like this is a quieter movie, so I don't know if there's a lot to talk about that's gonna like really stab people and get them hooked. So,
Yeah.
but I think it deserves it.
Yeah. No, I think so too.
But all right, let us know if you've seen Presence and what you think about it, and we'll talk to you next time.